Bob Costas back along with Julius Erving. The recent pantheon of NBA greats certainly includes Doc and Michael Jordan, and it also includes Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Larry joins us from French Lick, Indiana, and Magic from Beverly Hills. Now, it seems a little awkward to talk about the Bulls as one of the best teams of all time when tonight they're clearly not even the best team on this court. But let's assume that eventually they're going to correct themselves, if not tonight, then before the series is over. And we go to Larry Bird first. Larry, your take on this Bulls team and where it would rank against the great teams that you played with and against in the 80s.
Well, I think that this Bulls team is one of the best teams that I've ever seen. Of course, anytime you play on a championship team, you think that team is so special that it can beat anybody. But after watching the Bulls over and over this year, I think that they rank up there with some of the best that ever played. They have to be, because they won 70-some games and just lost 11. And obviously, they're going to win this series as it goes on.
Larry, I think a matchup between your 86 Celtics, especially, and these Bulls would be very interesting, and no guaranteed win for Chicago with the front line that 86 team had, plus Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge in the backcourt.
That's true. I think that's the reason that that we might do some good against them, because we did have the height advantage, and our front line was so unbelievable with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson in the background and Danny Ainge. And I think our only downfall at the time was Bill Walton was coming in as our sixth man.
Although that was a season where, for once, he was healthy. I think he played in 79 or 80 games that year. One thing that strikes me as... Oh, go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Well, Bill was healthy when he wanted to be. You know, he played an awful lot of games and a lot of minutes for us that year, but at times we had to beg him to play for us.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulty hooping up with Magic Johnson, so we'll stay with Larry Bird right now. One similarity, I guess there are many, but one that strikes me between you and Michael Jordan, Larry, is that killer instinct, totally ruthless on the court. You had that, and Michael does too.
Well, that's awful nice, Bob, to compare me and Michael Jordan. I think that anytime you have a team down, you got to go ahead and put them away. Michael wants to win this game tonight more than any game he's played in this series, because he knows this is a crucial game. He wants to get out of Seattle. He wants to get back home playing golf and taking the summer off. This is a very crucial game for him, but it looks like they probably won't win this one, but I guarantee you they'll have a good shot in the next one. Larry,
were you able to intimidate Michael Jordan at all early in his career?
I don't know. I never really said much to Michael. I hear all these things that people say, but I was a competitor. I played hard against the great players. Michael was a great player, and I just tried to do the best I could against him. I didn't have the athletic skills that Michael has. I couldn't jump as high or run as fast, but I had to make it up in other areas. And at times I did well, and other times I didn't do as well as I like to. But overall, I had a good career, and I'm very pleased with the way things went.
Julius, one thing for sure, you had Larry and Magic to test yourselves against. There's nothing comparable to that quality of competition at the top for these Chicago Bulls. Through no fault of their own, they don't have the Celtics and the Lakers like you did.
Well, they don't have a steady diet of those two teams, but certainly they have Orlando, they have the New York Knicks, the Indiana Pacers, and you can't say little about the Houston Rockets, you know, as being a cupcake team. They're a very, very good basketball team. But we had a steady diet of Milwaukee, Boston, L.A. in the finals 3 times before finally breaking through in the 3rd time. And just to, you know, kind of reiterate a little bit about what you and Larry are talking about, you know, even though I don't look that much older than those guys, I'm considerably older than both Larry Johnson and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan. And excuse me. So even though we played against one another on a competitive basis, I was playing near the end of my career, and the pre-Moses 76er teams were a lot different than the teams with Moses Malone. And that team knocked at the door, you know, by going to the finals 3 times before, as I said, breaking through with Moses. And I think the team with Moses, which had the all-time best record, and probably will maintain it if the Sonics can hold on today, could have beaten any of these teams, the present-day Bulls, and certainly we proved ourselves against the Celtics and the Lakers.
The 83 76ers who went 12-1 through the playoffs. Let's see if we can hook up with Magic now. Magic, your thoughts on this particular Bulls team? You played against the first Bulls champion in 1991, but this Bulls team, where does it rank?
Well, I think they're definitely one of the best teams of all time in basketball, only because they can go out and full court pressure and really defense, denying you, taking you out of your offense. So they're definitely one of the best teams of all time.
Let me ask you one quick one before we take a break here, Magic. Your team of the mid-'80s, with you in the backcourt, with Kareem up front, with James Worthy, with Byron Scott, with Michael Cooper for defense. Again, I think interesting matchups, and by no means assured that the Bulls would beat that team.
Well, Kareem is the X factor because there's nobody that could stop him on their team. Then he would set up shots for everybody else. I think Larry made a good point about his Celtic team, the same thing. The only way you can beat this Bulls team is to have a dominant front line, and that's what we had, and that's what the Celtics had, and of course Dr. J with his team with Moses. So it would have been probably a great finals, a great series, but at the end I think Kareem would have ended up winning it for us, maybe in a game 6 or 7.
We'll take a short break here and then return. More with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Julius Erving after a message from Prudential and a word from the NBA. And we're back, halftime at Key Arena. Larry Bird is with us from French Lick, Indiana, and Magic Johnson from Beverly Hills, and Julius Erving just to my right. Let's resume the conversation. Larry, we know that this Bulls team is on the short list of the great teams of all time. But what about the overall quality of the NBA in the mid-'90s? How do you think it stacks up to a decade or so ago?
Well, I think the expansion teams has really hurt the league. I think it's depleted some of the talent in our league. But, you know, you got to give the Bulls all the credit in the world. They've won a number of games, and it looks like they're going to win the NBA championship. So you got to give them all the credit in the world. They're a great basketball team. They got 3 players, and Jordan and Pippen and Rodman, that are very focused, and they come to play every night. They're tough, and they got a chance to do something no one's ever done before, and you have to give them all the credit in the world.
Doc?
I think, Bob, one of the things you got to consider when you talk about this Bulls team is that all year long they've been giving the fans of the basketball world a glimpse of the future, what the NBA is going to be like in the 21st century. It's going to be an international league, and they have 2 of the 3 best American players on their team. They have the best player ever playing from Croatia. They have the best player ever from the country of Australia. So we're getting a sneak preview of what it's going to be like in the 21st century.
And one last question for Magic before we get out of here. If, in fact, they're giving us a glimpse of the future, they're also connected to the past, Magic, because they play with an appreciation for the game and the proper approach that I know makes old-timers feel good about their success. Not that you're an old-timer necessarily.
Well, there's no question about it. You know, I am so excited about when I watch Chicago because look at the team. They're made up of veteran players and role players who know their role. They have 3 superstars. The other players play their role. And they're going to teach the Orlando Magic, the Seattle SuperSonics, the other young teams, really teaching them how to win and how to play basketball on the highest level. And that's why I love watching the Chicago Bulls, because there's Ron Harper, who I'm happy for. They got James Edwards, John Sally, all these guys, along with Kerr and Bushler. They're all on one page, and they're all for one goal. And if these young teams can understand that and get to that point, then like Julius said, the 21st century in the NBA is going to be exciting. So take note, young players, especially the Lakers and all these teams who are trying to get to that point. Look at the Bulls and figure out why they're winning this championship and why they won so many games this year.
Magic, as always, a pleasure. Thanks to you and to Larry Bird in French Lick, Indiana. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Always great to talk with both of you, and Julius Erving as well. One other note.